welcome to the IdiotSpeak podcast number 2. Woo! It's, Scott and James again, and James, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the new Episode 7 Star Wars.
Yes, and I've got a lot of mixed opinions on this, and we'll get to those in a little bit, but first I want to ask you, what if you could rank the original 6, I guess it's 6 now, what is your ranking of the original?
I'd have to go probably 5, 6, 4, 3, 1, 2.
Oh, you like 2 the least?
Yeah, I just didn't care for 2.
No, I don't disagree. I don't know which one I hate more, 1 or 2. I really... The only redeeming quality, in my opinion, of 1 is it does have my favorite lightsaber fight.
The first Darth Maul?
Yeah, the Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan fight is, I think, the best choreographed lightsaber fight in the entire 6 movies. My rankings very similar to yours, slightly different. I would say 5, 6, 3, 4, and then 1 and 2 somewhere in that I don't.
At the end, yeah.
I don't even own 1 or 2. I own 3, 4, 5, and 6. Don't own 1 or 2. I have no interest in owning 1 or 2. I could not get into those movies. And
I think the reason I like 1 better is because it does set up everything. I mean, going into 1, you knew what was going to happen eventually, so it's kind of cool to see the very beginning. I think that's the thing that puts it in front of 2 for me. Whereas 2 was just like this. It felt like filler.
Oh yeah, it did. It was nothing happened.
Nope.
Now, I will say that 1 does have a huge disadvantage going for it, and that
Jar Jar Binks?
That is Jar Jar Binks.
But he's in 2 and 3 very sparingly.
Sparingly, and that was even more than it should be. But, like I said, for me, the only redeeming quality of 1 is I thought Darth Maul was a really interesting character. I just really wish they would have developed him more. He's this menacing person kind of in the shadows throughout the first movie until the very end, and then he's gone, and I was hoping he was going to be a continuing character throughout the prequels, and obviously not.
Well, they did put him in the Clone Wars, though.
Oh yeah,
what was that, Cartoon Network or whatever?
I believe so.
And I thought those were actually fairly decent.
You know, I've never finished them, but I did like what I saw.
Yeah.
I did like what I saw, and I do intend to actually go back and finally finish this. I believe they're on Netflix now, so I'll have to check on there. But I did hear he was back in that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I remember I was so hyped as a kid to go see that movie because I loved the original 3.
Yeah.
I just would obsess over those 3 movies, and when I heard they were making new ones, I was like, I'm gonna get to see Star Wars in theaters, and I was so excited as a kid, and I even had all the toys for Episode 1 before it came out, and go and see it, and like even as a kid, I was like, I want to like this, but it's not. I don't feel the same about it, and and Lucas comes back. I believe didn't he direct 1, 2, and 3?
I believe so, yeah.
Because I know he directed 4, and he did not direct 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And he did not even write the screenplays for 5 and 6. He wrote the story, and then someone else wrote the screenplays off those.
Right.
Now, I believe for 1, 2, and 3, he directed and wrote, and I'm sorry, but the guy cannot write a script. He wrote an interesting story, but not an interesting script, and he made, I think, some very poor casting choices throughout 1, 2, and 3, and which kind of leads me to my thoughts on 7, is that when I had a roller coaster ride with my opinions on 7. Like when it was first announced, even that LucasArts was bought out by Disney.
Well, he sold. It wasn't necessarily they bought him out. He
He's
willingly sold it to Disney.
wasn't it for like billion?
It's
$8
a
billion
lot.
or something.
A lot of money.
I've also heard that he did donate all of that. Like he donated every dime that he got.
Really? I didn't hear any of that.
I heard that. I could be wrong, but I remember hearing something about him donating most, if not all, the money he got from that.
I think if he would have done that, that would have been everywhere, though.
I'll have to go back and check my facts on that, but I do believe I remember reading that. But anyway, I was like, oh, Disney's not going to be able to do this. It's not going to be Lucas helming this movie. I mean, this is his project. Then I start thinking,
no blood, no death, no, none of the good stuff.
Well, I started thinking, like, wait, I hated every movie he directed except for 4, which was what, in the 70s. So that's
right.
Yeah, he hasn't done a good job directing in a long time. Why am I so against this?
Yeah.
And I've never been a huge fan of J.J. Abrams movies or shows. Like, I never could get into Lost. Cloverfield didn't do anything for me.
No.
It was an interesting idea done poorly. So I decided, you know what? I want to see what J.J. Abrams would do with the sci-fi movie. So I saw his Star Trek, the first Star Trek movie he did. And I hated it. And that just furthered my negativity towards him doing 7. And I was just in this, it's going to be terrible. I don't think it, I just can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they picked him to do it of all people. And I'm trying to think what the next news story I heard. I believe it was the fact that the old cast was coming back.
Oh, the Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford. Okay.
What's your thoughts on that?
I like that they're bringing them back because it'd be, I guess if they're gonna go way off the beaten path, they didn't have to, but to bring them back, I think that alone is gonna draw all the old Star Wars buffs into it.
Right.
Simply because they're there. Like, all right, it's the same characters. We have to see what's happened in the last 30 years for them, or what they think has happened in the last 30 years for them. If nothing else, just see that. Then if 7 is crap, 8 might not get the following. But if nothing else, those three characters should bring in all the diehard fans just to see what happened.
Now, is this going to be, like, have they officially announced it's going to be 30 years or so in the future?
Yeah, I forget where I was reading. It's like almost exactly 30 years. And it's, even though the books aren't canon, it seems to be following similar guidelines along that, because it's Harrison Ford and Leia's kids that are supposedly going to be
now in this. I'm kind of jumping ship a little bit here, and I know in the most recent trailer that has just come out, they have the old dialogue from, I believe, Return of the Jedi with Luke, the explanation to Leia.
Yeah.
But they've repurposed it to almost sound like he's saying it to a child.
Correct.
Now, how did you interpret that? Is he talking to his own kids, or is he talking to Leia and Han's kids?
If I want to go off of what the books are, then I'm going to go with he's talking to Leia and Han's kids, because he kind of takes over as head of the Jedis and trains Leia and Han's kids, and I would think that he's telling them that because it's the same bloodline. They're his niece and nephew.
Exactly.
And so he's just explaining where all of that comes from.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I haven't read all of the books, but I do have a very good understanding of the storyline within them. And that was my first thought. Like, when he's doing this dialogue, I in my head, he's talking to his niece and nephew.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that for sure, but that's my opinion. But anyway, to kind of jump back to my earlier points, my opinion on the old cast coming back was kind of, again, mixed. My first thought is, well, that's just a cash grab. They're like, okay, well, we can roll in the old fans by having the old actors come in, and I mean, I just didn't think they would have really any good significance for this part. To
tell you the truth, I kind of wonder if Lucas maybe had something to do with that, simply because not only are they bringing in the 3 characters that you know who they are, but they're bringing back the same guy playing Chewie, they're bringing back the same guy playing R2-D2, same guy playing C-3PO. I mean, those are characters that you could have easily just not not necessarily characters brought back, but the actors that play them could have easily been replaced. They're not faces, they're things in the movie.
I mean, maybe with C-3PO, I mean, he's got that classic voice and kind of body language. I don't know if they could have got anybody else, but for Chewie or R2-D2, easily they could have grabbed anybody to play those roles, or even had them be, in R2-D2's case, just puppeteered.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I have mixed opinions. My first reaction was, well, it's a cash grab, and then the more I've read and the more I've kind of seen, it seems like they're doing them justice.
Yeah.
And I do think it is neat that they are going to tie this in somehow. But I believe the next thing that was announced was the actual teaser, which didn't that come out on Thanksgiving or right around Thanksgiving?
It was almost exactly a year before it was supposed to come out. So I thought it was either end of November, beginning of December.
I think maybe end of November.
Because the movie comes out December 16th of this year.
Right.
So I want to say it was either end of November or beginning of December.
I remember talking about it with some of my family during Thanksgiving, and I know it hadn't come out on Thanksgiving Day, so I think it came out like that weekend.
Right.
I want to say. And it was originally, I believe it was supposed to be in theaters only. You'd have to go see certain movies that would have that teaser attached to it.
Yeah, but how long does that last?
And I believe
anymore,
I believe that they even just said, screw it, we're putting it online ourselves, so that way someone else doesn't leak it.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up and really early at like 9 o'clock in the morning and watching it, and just I went from being a very against this movie to being extremely on board.
Yeah, I mean, the graphics alone pulled me in on it. Watching the Millennium Falcon fly around, watching the X-Wings fly around and stuff like that. I mean, that really looked fantastic.
And, well, to go off that, they looked great, but they didn't overdo it. Like, it wasn't Lucas prequels level of CGI just everywhere for the sake of we can do it now.
Yeah.
That again was another huge thing with those prequels he did. It was like you could see I didn't have the money to have all the special effects in the first movie I made, so I can do it now. So I'm gonna show everyone what I can do, and it's just like he overdid. I mean, did you see the teaser that was recut as the Lucas CGI cut?
No, I didn't see that.
There was, the scene with the Millennium Falcon flying, and there's like a couple TIE fighters chasing it.
Yeah.
It was the entire sky was just like thousands of
filled
TIE
with them?
fighters. Yeah, I mean, it was like the scene where the one guy undercover as a stormtrooper wakes up in the desert.
Yeah.
There's like 18 battalions of stormtroopers in the background, and like one of the Jawa sandcrawler tanks going by, and just it was outrageous. It would have. That's kind of what it would have looked like. Like what was his name? Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
The Sith. You know how he had the lightsaber come out, then the kind of the handles come out.
Hilt. Yeah.
Well, it has a double-sided one. I mean, it was just obnoxious.
Well, and what I thought was interesting is he did still keep it simplistic, just like with the ball droid.
Yeah.
Like, everybody kind of complained about the ball droid, but I think the ball droid's a great idea because it's not CGI. It's an actual little thing that's going to be running around and doing different stuff like that. So I like the ball droid.
My issue with the ball droid is it's so impractical. It looked good, but it was so impractical that it was like, what is the point of you?
Well, I mean, okay, to further that point, what's the point of riding around a box in the desert?
I know, I understand. I'm just, I was nitpicking, but it does look good. It looks, I like how he is using a lot of practical effects in what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
And I do remember, I believe it was a quote that came out yesterday I was reading, where he said that there was some kind of an effect shot or some kind of a shot somewhere, and the cast all kind of laughed at it when they were on set, and they were like, "Oh, that's just silly looking. We'll fix that up with CGI." And he said, "Why?"
Yeah.
He said, "We need to have this." He said it can't look perfect because it won't be real then. We need to have a good mix of CGI and practical. And yeah, the practical is going to look a little sillier, but it works. That's why we love the original 3 anyway. And I was like, okay, well, the guy seems like he gets it.
Well, is it like the stormtrooper hitting his head on the walking through the door and stuff like that? I mean, that's stuff that everybody knows what that is now. It's not.
I am so surprised that throughout all of these re-releases, he hasn't edited that out.
No, and I don't think he will. He put in that
he actually increased the sound of him hitting his head.
Yeah. And then didn't he have was it Django or Boba do the same thing just to reinforce the point?
Because like the fact that they were supposed to somewhat be clones.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, by the time that 4, 5, and 6 happened, they're not all clones anymore.
Yeah.
If you go by the book lore, which who knows if that's actually true or not, but I know by that time the Imperials had started recruiting other people.
Well, if you go by the books and stuff like that, it's because the clones have started to break down. They only have a specific lifespan.
Right. And I mean, if you remember, Luke was actually wanting to apply as a pilot in the Imperial Army.
Yep, which, again, going back to the new Clone Wars and their new one, Star Wars Rebels. In Star Wars Rebels, they actually try to recruit new pilots and stuff like that into it, which makes sense for seeing the Chrome Stormtrooper in this new pilot. It makes sense for seeing the guy in the middle of the desert that's clearly not a clone.
Right.
Different stuff like that. It makes sense that all of these are not everybody's going to be a clone anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Because they've started to break down.
Now, okay, what is your opinion of the Chrome Stormtrooper?
Well, have you read who it is?
No.
Okay, so I think I read this yesterday, that you watch Game of Thrones. The girl that plays Brienne of Tarth.
I've heard rumor that that's who it was.
That is who the Chrome Stormtrooper is going to be, which puts a female in a Stormtrooper outfit for the first time.
Now...
well, that we know of.
Well, true. But my opinion when I first saw it is a Stormtrooper... Well, I kind of have two kind of thoughts on this. It's either a stormtrooper who's gone rogue and has become a bounty hunter.
Okay.
Or it's someone who killed the stormtrooper,
took their outfit,
and then blinged it up and is a bounty hunter. My expectations is this is going to be like more or less the new Boba Fett.
And see, that's what I seen it as. I seen it as this is a mercenary.
Yeah,
exactly. They've got to distinguish themselves from everybody else, so they just took something and did it that way. It's going to be,
weren't the mercenaries Mandalorians?
Mandalorians is who Boba Fett.
He was a member
gets trained by. Jango Fett was a Mandalorian. Boba Fett inherited it from his father.
Right.
And the Mandalorians continue on that. Speaking of which, Boba Fett being not in the movies. Potentially, yes, no, maybe. Who the hell knows?
They did say yesterday he's supposed to have a spin-off movie.
I read that somewhere too.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be an Origins movie.
Oh, is it?
That's what I read.
Okay, I just heard that there is going to be a Boba Fett spin-off movie announced yesterday that is official that is going to happen. I didn't hear Origins. That does make sense.
Because they're going to tell, I guess, the story between when Django dies and he picks up his dead father's head, which for some reason doesn't fall out of the helmet. And
don't you see it in the shadow? Don't you see like the shadow of it fall out or something?
Dude, I remember like watching it a few times and be like, wouldn't the head fall out?
I don't know if like that's what I wanted to see or if that's what I actually saw. I can't. That was in, I believe, 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't care to go back and check. But that is in my memory. You see the shadow of the head either roll out when it gets cut off or when he picks it up, it falls out. In the shadow. But that is something I would like to see, an origin story of Boba Fett, because again, with the canon no longer being necessarily, or the book necessarily not being canon anymore, I'm curious if in J.J. Abrams' universe did Boba Fett live?
Well, and the other thing that I'm curious about is, all right, he was only so old when his dad died. How did he learn all the Mandalorian stuff?
Right.
How did he learn to be a bounty hunter, do all that kind of stuff? So I think that's where they're going to go with it because, again, the book's not being canon kind of takes all the wind out of this, but he ends up, when he's not killed by the Sarlacc pit, going and reestablishing the Mandalorians. and starts training people and doing stuff like that. Which, again, in Star Wars Rebels, there's a girl that runs around with a Mandalorian helmet.
Right.
In Clone Wars, there's a planet that they go to that's Mandalorian. So it's very... I don't know how far they're going to go with that. And Disney being the ones that did Clone Wars and Rebels, I don't know how much of that they're actually going to use, or they're going to go, nah, that was just for the kids. You know?
Right. Now, my knowledge of episodes 1 and 2 is very lacking, but I'm trying to remember. Didn't Jango Fett make sure that Boba Fett was actually not a clone like the rest of the clones? He was going to age at a more proper pace.
Correct. He was supposed to be more of a son,
right,
than a clone.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
Because he basically the way that the books and all that kind of stuff go was he needed someone to carry on the Mandalorian tradition, so that's what he was doing.
So technically, he could still be alive. He wouldn't have an age limit like the clones would have.
Now, and I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but that the fact that he is a clone and he starts to break down does play into what he does and doesn't do in the books.
Okay.
So
well, you see, the books that I read, I remember I had this book. It was like the Tales of the Bounty Hunters or something to that extent. That was written before the prequel movies were made.
Okay.
So in those, he wasn't a clone because they didn't know that that's what Lucas was going to do with it.
Gotcha.
So the ones I read is he did have a very long life, and again, spoilers if you're ever going to find this ancient book and read it. But I remember in like the last part of his chapter in the book is him squaring off like really far in the future with Han.
Okay.
And it's more or less that they have this just brawl that ends up with them both almost dying. Like they're old men and they have just kicked the shit out of each other. And they finally they call truce. They said, we don't have it in us. Let's just finish out our lives. We've gone this far. And like I said, they're both old, and I know the clones had a life limit.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't think that could actually happen if his life limit kicks in.
Well, what it was they were made to mature at a faster rate. Because obviously you don't want to wait 20 some odd years
right, exactly.
for a clone.
For the army.
Right. So they were maturing at a faster rate, and he didn't have Boba be a part of that.
Right. So again, in the new trailer, the one that came out, what was it, a couple weeks ago, or was it even longer?
April 7th?
Yeah, that seems right. Wasn't that Star Wars Day or something like that?
No, May 4th is Star Wars Day.
Well, no, I mean...
the 4th be with you.
Right. But, no, it wasn't... there was actually, like, Star Wars Day where they released a bunch... They released the trailer on that day. They released the Battlefront... The new Battlefront trailer.
Oh, okay.
Basically, a bunch of stuff just got released.
Yeah, which they screwed everybody up by putting Boba Fett in the Battlefront trailer. So everybody was, what?
But, so that's the trailer I'm talking about now. In that trailer, did you notice that the Imperial logo is just completely different?
Well, I don't know if that's supposed to be the Imperial logo or if that's a Sith logo.
Well, okay, you could be right there, but the reason why I'm calling it a updated Imperial logo is because there's this like a whole army of stormtroopers with it. Like it's up on this thing. This like banner, and they're all like in formation behind it.
Yeah.
So I mean that makes me think that it's an Imperial logo. But my thoughts is, why would it change? Why would it? This is the Empire has now, they're down their Emperor,
right?
Which I can't remember completely. Did he completely dissolve the Senate? I know he appointed himself as like the...
I believe the Senate was still there, but for what reason I don't know. If he had ultimate power, it's kind of like the president declaring martial law. I mean, it's like they're there, but it doesn't matter. The president's going to do whatever.
Do they do anything? So like my thought is, okay, who took over after the Emperor? Because I mean, as far as I know, there was no second in line.
Right. Well, and that goes into the Sith rule of two, and there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into that.
I'm just looking into like the actual like real politics on how.
Yes,
like,
okay.
Because
the government style.
Right. I mean, who would take over for the emperor? And I would say they're actually in some sort of disarray because their leader has been more or less assassinated. The rebels have actually really started gaining ground on having other planets, and just a bigger number of people joining them.
Right.
Obviously, as we see in this trailer, there's a Star Destroyer in the ground. So I mean, there is still war going on. Like, just because the Emperor and the Death Star, the second Death Star, were destroyed, doesn't mean the whole war was over. It was just a major victory for the rebels. So
and that may be why you have a new logo.
Well, as I said,
is because maybe it's not an Empire logo anymore. Maybe it's the Empire is now calling itself something else because everybody sees the Empire as, oh, they were related to the Sith, and they were, oh, they did all this bad stuff. How did we not see this? So now they need to be something else so that they're not attached to that.
And my thoughts is,
even though you're all stormtroopers.
Right. I mean, to me, it all still looks the same. Like, the stormtroopers are still there. The pilot troopers still look the same. The stormtroopers are slightly different.
Yeah,
but
they have like black lines on their
right.
helmet.
But I mean, to me, it's close enough that it's still a stormtrooper.
Right.
So, why would they change the logo that drastically? It almost seems like it would put a sense of disarray, like we are falling apart, so we're having to rebrand. You'd think they would be,
but they might be falling apart. Then the rebranding might be the trying to pull them back together.
I would think of the exact opposite. I mean, even if they were falling apart, you would think they would hold on to, like, no, we are still this, like, on the outside, like, have this this front of strength, like, hey, we are still the Empire, we will handle these traitors or whatever.
Well, and another thing, and this goes into the newer trailer too, is, all right, the stormtrooper that was lost in the desert or something in the desert, all right, the lead protagonist, the girl, clearly is helping him out during the new trailer, all right, so clearly some part of the Empire is falling apart where the stormtroopers are running away, fleeing, something.
You see, I still think that he is some sort of a spy. That was my just initial reaction, is, oh, he's a spy.
See, I take
or
it
a
a
double
little bit
agent
different.
or something.
I think that maybe he became a stormtrooper and then showed promise of being a Jedi.
Okay,
and so they tried to test him, and when he didn't want to go to the dark side, it was time to kill him.
So maybe he's defected from the Empire. And
that's my thing.
Okay,
with that.
I could see that too, but like I said, my initial reaction is, oh, spy. He's a double agent or
Could
spy for the rebels in the Empire.
It's gonna be a trilogy, so we may not know what he is until 10 years from now when this trilogy ends. Yeah, right. It's gonna be 4 years from now when this trilogy ends. But
aren't they supposed to like have them come out like every 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, it's something weird like that, which I don't know if I agree with or not, because I don't think you should put a specific timetable on it. What if something comes up and you're like, well, I could go this direction with it, like all right.
Or like Harrison Ford breaks his ankle again.
Well, okay. And again, how canon do you want to go to the books? How long are these characters going to stay around?
Well,
are all three of these characters going to be dead at the end of this movie so they don't have to deal with them anymore?
And that is something that I have heard, that is one of these characters is going to die. Now, logic, in my opinion, from a, not story, but from a movie director point of view, Harrison Ford has already broke, what was his leg or his ankle?
I don't remember.
He broke something in his leg. And he just recently crashed a plane.
Yes, which, have you seen the memes of the Millennium Falcon like in a
I have.
That's freaking awesome.
So, as a liability, you would think lose this guy. Because, I mean, he's going to either keep delaying the movie or... And I hate to say it because, I mean, I love Harrison Ford.
Yeah. But speaking of which, have you read some of the... like internet speculation on Han actually being a Jedi and not knowing it?
No, but I highly disagree with that.
Because how did he react to the shot being fired at his head that he would have had no time to react to?
Okay, which version of the shot? The original version?
Who shot first?
We
won't go into that. That's a whole other conversation.
Oh, no, I'll go into it. But in the original version where he makes a normal human movement, or the digitally re-edited one where he just like completely flips like a terrible... Oh, God. Lucas,
So what
stop.
you're asking is the original Anakin or Ghost Anakin from Episode 3. Is that what you're asking?
Why would it be the Anakin from Episode 3? Everyone else looked how they did when they died.
I don't know.
Obi-Wan Kenobi looked like Alec Guinness. Yoda looked the same pretty much all the time.
Well, there's like Yoda.
Yeah, he
Is
never.
ancient
Yeah.
or is just an alien that looks old
So
all the time.
Why would Anakin look like Hayden? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Oh, Lucas.
All right, to get back on track though.
Well, I can't remember what we were talking. Oh, okay. All right. Another point that I know a lot of people have had their dissent about was Kylo Ren and his lightsaber.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on the character and the character?
Well, considering we know nothing about the character yet, it's kind of hard to go off of. I mean, we know obviously he's a Sith.
Well, right.
We know that he has to have a master. That's just the way the Sith works. Also means that he has to have an apprentice somewhere.
Well, now
or recruiting an apprentice.
Here's a theory I've heard, and I kind of like. I don't know if I believe it or not, but I like it. It's something I've heard that's plot related. Is his whole story is he is looking for Sith artifacts.
Okay.
Old Sith artifacts. Now, that to me could mean he is right now the only Sith. He has learned from the text and whatnot, and he's decided to bring the Sith back because with the Emperor and Vader killed, there were no Sith left. Because, like you said, there's always two.
It depends on how you look at it.
But
there's only one master and apprentice.
Right? No, I know.
There's other Sith agents and different stuff like that.
Right? No, I understand that. I'm just that's kind of like an interpretation I could take from it. Is he is restarting the Sith.
Okay.
And he's finding these artifacts. And in the trailer, there is a shot of Darth Vader's burned helmet.
Right.
Now, the last we saw that was when they were burning the body on Endor after the Star Destroyer was... or not the Death Star was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that in that shot, that Vader's helmet is in possession of Kylo Ren.
Okay.
I believe he is now either
The
stolen
owner of
that or went down and found it. And I don't know. I could see that being a valid theory, is that he is actually the only Sith, and he's trying to restart. He's trained himself, or he's a Jedi turned bad, and is following Sith practices, and he's trying to find these ancient artifacts so he can learn the ways of the Sith because he has no one to teach him.
Now, what would be interesting about that is that brings up an interesting point about his lightsaber. All right, so everybody's all upset about his lightsaber and the hilt on it and stuff.
Right.
Like, what purpose does that serve? If it's an ancient lightsaber, that would make probably a little bit more sense. If it's an outdated one that he couldn't make one because he can't go get a crystal to make him a lightsaber, and he has to go find an ancient lightsaber. Ancient swords and stuff like that have the big hilts on it, have the all that kind of stuff.
I'll even take that one further. Is my opinion is that he found this old, maybe even like the schematics for an old lightsaber, and built his own, but didn't quite know how to do it, but he did it to the best of his ability, and this lightsaber is unstable.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you look at it, it doesn't look quite like any lightsaber we've seen before. I'm not even saying with the hilt, I'm just saying with the way the blade looks, it looks unstable to a degree.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not actually a hilt for the sake of being a hilt, but it's exhaust ports for the instability of this lightsaber.
Yeah, and there could be a lot of things with this because we don't know how old he is either. I've noticed he lurches. He kind of limps and lurches. Now who knows if he just got done with a fight and he's injured or something like that in the trailers. But
they did just show his face unmasked yesterday, I do believe.
Oh, okay.
There was a picture, a still of him without the mask on.
Okay.
And he looks young.
Okay.
He doesn't look like he's old.
Okay.
So I would say he is in his probably late 20s or so. And so I do notice what you mean, though. I mean, he does have a walk to him like he has been injured.
Right.
So I am curious about that. Like I'm very curious about what they're going to do with his story. And I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. I don't have a lot of hope because, like what I said, what they did with Darth Maul, like before Episode 1 came out. I mean, he was like the poster of that movie. He's barely in it, and his story was not fleshed out whatsoever.
Well, to give you some kind of hope,
it's not Lucas writing it.
Well, the other thing being that if you kill the main villain in this one, all right, before he's had a chance, unless you're going to cram a year's worth of him training someone into this movie,
right?
Like, he's got to at least be around to some capacity, even if it's in Ghost, Sith, Jedi form.
Okay. Have we ever seen that? Have we ever seen a ghost of a Sith?
Vader?
Yeah, but I mean, wouldn't you say that at the very end he kind of changed to the light side?
Well, but that's like to say, okay, they all started out as Jedi and now they're Sith. I mean, that's...
I know.
How do you go about that?
I mean, why isn't, like, there's the three of them. It's Yoda, Anakin, and Obi-Wan, and then, like, Emperor in the background scowling.
Ooh, like he's in the corner, like, kicking dirt. Like,
yeah.
Man, I can never get to win. So
I mean, I would be curious to see if maybe, like, Ghost Emperor is training Kylo Ren or something like that.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, and the other thing is the technology that's around and stuff like that. Who's to say that the Emperor was training other people thinking that Vader was going to... I mean, his whole thought process was he was going to replace Vader with Luke anyway.
Right.
So to say that maybe he didn't have another side project going, which would have been, a young kid at the time that showed great promise. Sounds really familiar.
We're getting into the, was it the Force Unleashed?
Yes, exactly. So maybe that's who Kylo Ren is. He's from the Force Unleashed. They just, like, renamed him.
What was the name in that game? Wasn't it, like, Star Killer?
Yes, Star Killer, I believe. Or Star... No, it's Star Killer.
It was Star Killer. It was just... All right. So, have you seen any of the things with any of the tie-in games? Like, I think the only one they've really announced is Battlefront 3.
Yeah, and I've seen the preview for that and the different stuff like that, which makes me wonder what kind of time frame that's going to be in. Are you fighting in episodes 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3?
Yeah.
Where are you going to be fighting in? And
from what they've announced, the battles in the game as of now are going to all be in the original 6.
Okay.
Now, there are going to be 4 free DLC packs that do tie in 7. Now, from what I've been told and from what I've read, these DLC packs are going to be in the time frame between 6 and 7. So it's not actually spoiling 7 for you, because I believe the game comes out before the movie.
But it's only like a month. You're looking at November release date of Battlefront and December release date.
Was it November?
I thought so. I mean, I could be wrong, but
like I said, all I read was that they said they didn't want to spoil 7, so the DLC is going to be the battles in between 6 and 7.
Gotcha.
And they did say one of the battles that you will fight is, I believe it's the Battle of Jakku or Jakai, I can't remember how you pronounce it. And that is the battle that, in that trailer, you see the downed Star Destroyer in
crash into the
that's
planet.
That planet. It's Jakku or Jakai. And I don't know, I think that's neat. I like that we're getting mostly the stuff that we know.
Yeah.
But we're also going to have some... just like a taste of what's to come, and even I guess you could say some of the stuff we're not going to really even get to see,
right?
Because like Star Wars seems like it loves to do this. It loves to talk about battles that we never see,
right?
Because when 1 and 2 and 3 came out, they talked about the Clone Wars, but we didn't actually see the Clone Wars until the cartoon.
Yeah, and it's another thing that they like to do, which is, at least so far in their games, they like to hide things in the games that explain things about the movies that you didn't previously know.
Right.
So, like, maybe who's to say that they don't come out with a DLC the day the movie comes out that helps explain something in the movie that when you watch the movie you go, now how the hell did that happen? So, I don't know. I mean, Battlefront looks amazing anyway, and it'll just be interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah, and I loved the first Battlefront. Like, that to me was a really great game. I haven't played it in years. I don't know if it's aged well or not. Now, I've got some bad memories of the second game. I remember a friend of mine, I used to go over to his house and we would play Versus on Battlefront, and he would have his profile with all his prestiged weapons that would be like one-hit kills, and he'd just go, you just use just the regular profile, you don't have to worry about saving and stuff. So none of my weapons would do anything to him. So I just remember like just getting my ass handed to me on every match and just not enjoying that game. So I don't have many fond memories of Battlefront 2, but I'm looking forward to 3, and I know EA is making it, which is a big red flag to me.
Yeah.
But they seem like they know what they're doing with their other was it the Battlefront games they do or Battlefield games they do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's basically, to me, this looks, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. This looks like Battlefield with a Star Wars coat of paint on it.
Right.
And that'd be fine. Yeah.
That's what I say. The big thing with me is I'm all about the story, and playing a game and going through and killing people throughout it is great, but to skip all of the story and not know what's going on bothers me. I know you love to do that.
You see, to me, the story comes second in a game. But
what about this game? I mean, this game ties in with movies that the story. So are you going to pay attention to the story, or are you just going to be like...
No, because I know the story.
And they're going to... Oh, wow. And then all of a sudden you're playing as Boba Fett and you're like, well, what the heck happened?
And I'm fine with it because I'm Boba Fett now. That would be perfectly fine for me. I like my stories in games. I like that they're in there. But to me, that's not the end-all, be-all. Like, I will play a game with a bad story that plays well. Like,
you're all about the gameplay.
Well, for example, I mean, this has nothing to do with Star Wars, but in my opinion, Bayonetta. This story makes no sense whatsoever, but it plays amazing, and I love playing that game. It is one of the most just convoluted
backwards
story that I've ever heard. But it's amazing because of how good the gameplay is. So, like, if they can make a good Star Wars game that plays really well, that you can have fun, you can be either a stormtrooper, you can be a rebel, you can be a Jedi, whatever. And if you can have fun doing that, if they throw a mediocre story in there, that's not going to bother me whatsoever.
Yeah.
This kind of does tie in a little bit more with the Star Wars universe, is the Jango Fett game, Star Wars Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
Story wasn't that great. I don't even remember what the whole premise of it even was, but you played as Jango Fett, and that was awesome. And I remember that. I really hope we get some kind of a sequel to that game. Like, I hope when this my second thought when this Boba Fett movie was announced was, oh, maybe we'll get another Bounty Hunter game. Because
as Boba Fett.
As Boba Fett, yeah. Because the Jango Fett game was so good, and they had this mechanic that never really was used, where you would actually have to use like your visor and scan people.
Mm-hmm.
And you could collect bounties on them, and like you would either have to tie them up to bring them in alive, or you could shoot them and bring them in dead. And there were some that you had to bring in dead, and there were some you had to bring in alive. Did nothing for doing it. And like you'd usually die trying to scan each enemy, because not every enemy had a bounty, but a lot of them did, but you had to scan them to see how you needed to bring them in.
Yeah.
So it almost became like after the first level you never touched it again. But I would like to see that like actually fleshed out into more of an open world, not just a linear run down a hallway, shoot the guys, fight the boss, move on. I would actually like to see more of you're almost like a Metroid Prime, where your ship is kind of like your hub, and you'll get like a notification that a bounty has come through, and you have to go to that planet to hunt down that character. And
so you have your own carbonate dip tank on your ship, and you just start dipping everyone in carbonate. But you can only hold like 5, and then your ship weighs too much. You got to go like drop them off somewhere.
Well, no. Boba Fett would just go meet up with Bespin and figure out their carbonite technology, implement that into his ship, and then just go from planet to planet, finding his bounties, freezing them, taking them to his different
Jabba or whoever's got the bounty
his
out
gangsters and warlords, dropping them off as decorations for their palace, and then get paid and move on.
That was one thing I wanted to see more of. Like, all right, they dipped Han Solo in carbonite. Why is there no other carbonite things anywhere in the movie? Well, like, you would think, like, you'd walk into, like, some bar and there's, like, a guy that didn't pay his tab, like, frozen in carbonite. Like, we're going to let him out in 3 years and, he'll be all right.
Well, it seemed like in 5 that was something no one had ever heard of doing before. Because, I mean, carbonite was just for freezing, like, goods to ship to places.
Yeah.
Where, like, they were all surprised that Han was going to be able to live through it. And, like, Vader only wanted to even put Han through it to see if Luke could survive it. Like, Han was the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And
he was only blind for a little while.
Well, I remember, like, Boba Fett's like, I can't remember, he said something like, he's worth more to me alive than dead. And Vader's like, yeah, well, I don't care.
But, yeah, I'll be interested to see, because so far we don't have very many speaking parts in the trailers. I mean, you got a few lines from the protagonist, a lot of lines from Mark Hamill's character, a line from Han Solo. But for the most part, I mean, like,
good line,
yeah, it was. Kylo Ren doesn't talk yet, It'd be interesting, like, even if they were to throw out a new trailer that just had, like, the Emperor's voice saying something, be like, oh, man, like, what the hell's going on there? But
that's your Emperor's voice?
No, that was my reaction to hearing it, like, oh, wow. No, that was not my Emperor's voice.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Please don't make me do an Emperor's voice. I don't want to try.
We're going to do an entire Let's Play of you doing that voice. But, no, you're right. I mean, we haven't really heard anybody speak other than Mark Hamill, and that was just the same dialogue, if not the actual just same audio from Return of the Jedi.
It didn't sound like the same audio. It sounded, or if nothing else, updated.
I don't know. I couldn't tell. The first time I listened to it, I'm like, oh, they just re-spoke the original dialogue. Then I listened to it again, I'm like, no, that sounds like the original dialogue that they just... Or the original audio that they just kind of...
remastered.
Yeah, they enhanced or whatever. So I don't know. I couldn't tell. I'd have to really compare the two. But yeah, we really... Other than Han's line, I can't think of a single thing spoken in the either trailer.
No, I want to say the protagonist, the girl, says something when she picks up the stormtrooper that's not in stormtrooper stuff anymore. Okay. I think she says something like, come with me or something like that. But other than that, I mean,
come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, exactly. Get to the chopper. No. Get to the Millennium Falcon. So, yeah, it'll be interesting when more dialogue comes out, if it does. I mean, we've got, what? 8 months?
Now, I did hear something about Abrams. He said he is trying to push for this to come out sooner than it already is.
I don't know why, though.
Well,
because he's worried about Christmas influencing his box office?
No, I think... this to me, it sounds like he's just catering towards fans. He's like, yeah, I want you all to see this as soon as possible, too. There's no way that he's going to be able to make up enough fuss to get Disney.
And there's no way, especially with Battlefront coming out and stuff like that. They're not going to push it forward.
No, these things are timed for a reason.
Yeah, it's like, we got to push out all new posters. That ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, I do remember, though, like, I'm definitely going to see this in theaters opening day.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been
Maybe a few times.
Yeah. On opening day?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to buy the first 3 showings. I need 7 tickets apiece.
I haven't been to a midnight premiere of a new movie in a long time, and honestly, I want to say the last time I went to a midnight premiere was the original, the Star Wars Episode 3.
Yeah.
And I remember me and some friends, we went right after high school, or we got out of school, and it was like 2 p.m, and we drove to the theater. And we get there, we park his car, open up our trunk. He's got like 4 or 5 lightsabers in his trunk. We go walking into the lobby, and we're expecting a huge line.
Yeah.
And there's this roped off section, and no one's in it.
That's awesome.
And we're like, oh, we're gonna have a long day. So we went and we just started like having lightsaber fights in the middle of the lobby, and like I remember the concession stand people were just like, they were throwing boxes of candy at us because they were bored and being entertained by us. I think that was one of the most fun I've had at a movie premiere.
Yeah.
And it was like we got there at 2:30. No one else got there until like 8.
Ooh.
So we had like 6 hours of just hanging out in a movie theater lobby. So I don't know if I'm gonna do that again.
I wouldn't go that early.
I'll go and see it at midnight.
Yeah, that's where I say, because the last one that I seen at midnight, I want to say was the first Avengers, and that was just because a bunch of people were going, so I went. But the way they do the midnight premieres, and I would imagine there's going to be multiple screens that are playing this at midnight in the same theater.
We had 2.
Yeah, so I don't think we're going to have to worry about being there at noon to get in or anything.
Oh, and we had our tickets like months in advance. Like it was stupid how prepared we were for this.
Well, I think you can already pre-order tickets for this one.
Oh, can you already?
I think so. At least at certain theaters. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I definitely want to see what they do with the villain, how long he sticks around or doesn't stick around, his backstory, and where they go with it.
Yeah, well, I guess we're gonna have to wait till December
16th-ish.
I keep hearing something about Christmas.
I thought it was the 16th because my wife's birthday's on the 20th. So I kept like, all right, it's 4 days before. That'll be all right.
All I know is it's in December, and I keep hearing something about like this Christmas. I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing Christmas Day.
Yeah, if it is, it is.
But
sorry, family.
So I guess this kind of wraps up our first of probably many Star Wars podcasts that we're going to be doing.
Oh yeah, I have much more to talk about.
I'm pretty sure every time a trailer comes out, there's going to be an update that we will be posting.
Or a few.
Yeah. Remember, you can check us out at Idiots at Play on YouTube, and we will have full Let's Plays and some other surprises on there fairly soon. We're getting all those recorded now.
See.
And you can check us out on IdiotSpeak Show on SoundCloud. And we'll see y'all later.